I want everybody here to stop resisting because the algorithm isn't going to magically switch back to 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the walkthrough. This is the most underrated, valuable marketing show in real estate history. I am Eric Simon, also known as the Broke Agent, and I am joined here by absolutely nobody because it turns out that everyone hates me and nobody wanted to come on the show. Of course, I'm just kidding. Jason is actually traveling. He was just speaking at the Sell It conference or was attending it, and he wanted to be here. In fact, he did everything he could to be here, to find a time to record. So I do commend him for that. That is a good co-host right there. He will be back next week, which is also BAM Camp week. So the reason there are no guests today is because I want to do a little content state of the union, because it's time to discuss the new algorithm versus the old. Interest over social media, which is a topic we've touched upon before, but that I want to dive back into because it is extremely important for you all to understand. If you like the sound of that, which you should, throw this video a like because it is the best way you can support us here on BAM. All right, so the social media algorithms have completely changed. You've probably noticed a huge shift in engagement, probably for the worse, and you're probably wondering why. So that is where interest over social media comes into play. And I just want to clarify here what's going on with content and to help you craft a more effective strategy. So to be clear, interest media has replaced social media. I believe this is a term that was coined by Gary Vaynerchuk. I heard him do it on a podcast. I heard him talk about it to Neil Dingra on one of his podcasts. But basically, this is what the landscape looks like right now. So social media, which is what it used to be, the whole entire focus was on building a following. So your content reach was tied mainly to your follower account. And success basically meant if you gain followers, you'll see a percentage of that following would actually see that content, right? So the whole name of the game was how many followers do you have? How many followers do you have? How can I get to 10,000 followers so that maybe 1,000 of these people will actually see this content? So people would buy followers, people would do everything they can to basically make that number go up, knowing that that was the number one thing in the algorithm to actually push your content to other people. It was all kind of connection based, who you follow, who your friends follow. That's what social media was about. Now it has become interest media, where the focus is now on the content itself. So platforms now will be pushing content into feeds based on an algorithm that analyzes user behavior and interests, not just follower relationships. Of course, the following account still matters a little bit, but it's mattering less and less every single day. So again, just to reiterate, the core difference, social media is distribution through your network, through your followers, and interest media is distribution through the platform and the algorithm. So for the new way, success means that you make content that is relevant, that's entertaining, or that's useful enough to be picked up by the algorithm and shown to people who have never heard of you. All right, I'm taking my sunglasses off because I look ridiculous. So from a consumption standpoint, this is actually, I think, mostly a good thing because your time on each platform feels a little bit more enjoyable and personalized because every post is carefully fed to you, keeping you hooked kind of in this eternal brain rot so that you never log off any social platforms. I mean, it's a better experience on social, but then it also makes you never leave the platform. So from a posting standpoint, though, especially for real estate agents, this can be an extreme challenge. So I want to take this agent, Chris Perry, for example. So he's an agent who has been super open about the frustration of how the algorithm has changed the way he approaches his content. And as he puts it in this reel, if you aren't interested in real estate, you're not going to see my stuff.
If I can be transparent with you, something that's really got me down lately through Instagram in particular is the algorithm change from social to interest based, meaning I'm a real estate agent that has built his business and his following through educating on real estate. But if the algorithm doesn't deem that you are at all interested in real estate, it's not even going to show you my content. So even if you wanted to buy a home in the DMV, if the algorithm doesn't deem you to be interested, it's not going to show me you, or vice versa. at all. So that means I've had to pivot quite a bit because what used to work doesn't really work anymore. So put out your content. And of course, if you want to buy a home in the DMV, I got you. But we pivot and we keep moving.
So I love this video because it basically encapsulates everything that I'm saying right here. But I feel him. Like, you could see the general frustration that he actually has because this guy's been producing amazing real estate content. I've followed Chris for a while, and I really commend him for making this video and being vulnerable with his audience because, like I said, he's posted primarily educational real estate content for consumers in the DMV video. And judging by his melancholy delivery, it's not working like it used to. And he smartly says that he's going to pivot because you have to, right? If he's only producing real estate content and he's seeing a dramatic decrease in engagement, then you do have to make some sort of move, because if you just keep putting up the same shots every single time and expect different results, that is the definition of insanity. So I love at the end there, he smartly said, we pivot. So the real question then begins, how do you actually create content that people are interested in? So here's what doesn't work for most people. Think about your content like this. If you're not actively looking, or your consumers or the people that follow you are not actively looking to buy or sell a home, chances are that strictly real estate content like inventory stats, days on market, listing videos, or educational posts about the difference between an FHA and conventional loan are not going to grab the attention of consumers, because that type of content is obviously still very important for building trust and authority, but it's not broad enough to reach beyond people who are already, or who are not in the market, right? So let's use me as an example. 6 months ago, my wife and I were actually looking to potentially buy a home, and then, of course, randomly, my social media feed was flooded with news about the LA housing market, and would get freakily specific about the areas that we were looking in. But then once we stopped looking for a house, found an apartment, my algorithms went back to golf shots, sports scores, funny memes, and we'll basically just leave it at that. So the point is, once we became less interested in buying a house, the content being fed to us was not content about buying a house. So I've talked about this with Jason on this podcast before. If people are buying a house or moving once every 8, 9, 10 years, and they're not actually in house hunting mode or house selling mode, that educational content is not going to be shown to them. So you need those off speed pitches. So what does work in interest based media now? It's, of course, hyper-local content. And you could roll your eyes about how often we mention this, but there's a reason that we do, and that's because it absolutely works. Because everyone wants to know what's happening where they live, regardless of whether they are looking to move there or stay there. This could be something about new restaurants in the area, local businesses, new developments, neighborhood updates, news, or community events, something that actually provides value to the person sitting on the couch, because people really just want to be in the know. So if you're giving them new information that they can share with their friends, their spouse, or their partners, then that's the content that's really valuable. Think about the stuff that you would actually either screenshot and send to your friends or to your wife or whatever, or stuff that you would send in the DMs. Very rarely is it going to be an educational video about how, an appraisal gap or something like that, right? It's going to be new information. Did you hear about this new coffee shop that just opened, or the bar that's doing karaoke on Friday night, or there's a new farmers market in the Playa Vista area where I live, or a new Italian restaurant opened up on Grant and Craycroft, and we have to go there, right? Hate it or love it, this really is the type of content that draws people in. So once they engage with you, this is the important part, really. Once they engage with you with the hyper local content, that's when they're naturally going to become more open to your educational content, your listing videos, your market updates, and your educational posts, because they've already seen all of your other content. You've already hooked them in with all of the hyper local stuff. Now, once you post a listing video, because they've interacted with everything else, that is going to rise the tide of the engagement on all of your other content. If you stick to strictly real estate stuff, it's going to hurt your other content. All right, so if you focus on interest media, you're going to be an agent that does stand out from the crowd. And if you want to continue along those lines, Reminder Media is a resource you have to check out. You get your own branded print and digital magazines, email newsletters, and social media content. Reminder delivers these resources to your contacts on autopilot, keeping you top of mind with your database. All you got to do is focus on your follow-up calls and watch referrals and repeat business come in. Use the link below to check out Reminder Media. So a lot of agents push back on this idea. A lot of people get pissed anytime you mention that you have to kind of go the entertainment or news route and, think of yourself as a media company that happens to sell real estate. And they want to only post about real estate because that's maybe what worked for them. That's their business. And they were taught to do this at some seminar in 2019. And they're not evolving with the platform. And I know there's some agents that absolutely crush educational content and storytelling, like a Glenda Baker, who doesn't have to do this hyper local stuff because she's an amazing storyteller who wraps in her personal experiences to her real estate business and her content. But for the most part, when people are looking at their content, they see, I am not getting that much engagement right now. It's because you're doing strictly real estate stuff and people don't want to share educational posts or new listing videos if it doesn't pertain to them. So the reality is you really have to get people to pay attention before you can actually sell them something. Broke Agent, I built this brand for 10 years before we ever did an ad read or ever tried to get people into our BAMX community where we offer hyperlocal templates like this that you should definitely check out. So I'm not saying to stop posting listing videos or market insights. I'm just saying to widen the umbrella, throw more off speed pitches, and use hyperlocal content to build a bigger audience of people who may not be in the market right now, but will be in the market down the line. So I want everybody here to stop resisting because the algorithm isn't going to magically switch back to 2017 where all of your followers see your posts. You have to continuously focus on creating new content to attract new people. And that's going to be mostly through interest-based content. So here's a little pro tip, because I see a lot of people that now go this hyper local route and they also look like hostages when they're doing their educational content. And it's because they're like, all right, now I got to do hyper local stuff. So I'm going to green screen this coffee shop I've never been to and act like it's news. Make hyper local content about things that you actually care about. So don't just post about a restaurant that you've never been to or a business you know nothing about, right? Share your real experiences. The authenticity is what's going to make your content more trustworthy, more relatable, and shareable. Plus, you'll just have a ton more fun actually making that content. So that's interest over social media. That's the state of the union right there. I hope this kind of clarifies what's going on with content and helps you craft a more effective strategy. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please throw this video a like. We will be back next week with Jason Cassidy, the best co-host in the world, and we'll see you next week on The Walkthrough.